Hey guys, thank you for clicking on this video. Today, are you serious? Oh no. The Big Lebowski, everyone. Hey guys, it's me again. Thank you for clicking on this video. Today I'm going to be doing another review. It's going to be A.G. Howard's Roseblood. This is a dark fantasy romance YA novel that came out in January 2017. I know I'm a bit late to the game to this one, but I really wanted to talk about it. This video is going to be a little bit less of a video essay and more of just a straight up review. I wanted to try and keep it a little bit shorter. So yeah, here we go. So Roseblood is about a teenage protagonist named Rune who has a bit of a compulsion and a bit of a curse in terms of her singing voice. Every time she hears an aria recorded or an instrumental or a song being sung in person, she is compelled to sing and she can't really control it. She can't really stop herself from singing along with the song. It doesn't really matter if she's heard the song or if she's learned the song or not. She can sing it perfectly every time, but after she has sung, she finds herself feeling weak and depleted and really, really sick. So it's almost like music has possessed her. It's almost like she has this musical curse. If she tries to hold it back, it'll just eat away at her until she sings it. It's like some kind of catharsis, some kind of cathartic release. In an attempt to cure Rune of this curse, Rune's mom sends her to a prestigious opera boarding school called Roseblood. It's in Paris and it is rumored to have ties to the legend of the Phantom of the Opera. Eventually, she settles into a day-to-day routine at the school, she meets some friends, and she starts to sort of get into a rhythm. However, things start to get a little bit weird when she starts to interact with a masked figure that she is convinced is the Phantom of the Opera, living hidden in the school all the time, listening to her sing and contacting her in her dreams. So this book has been marketed as a Phantom of the Opera inspired retelling, and basically what it is a continuation of the original story in modern times. But it's a little bit meta because Rune has actually read the novel Phantom of the Opera in this story, and she is sort of going into this experience prepared to deal with something having to do with Phantom of the Opera in real life. So Howard has used aspects of the original novel as well as historical and factual accounts that could have inspired the original novel to design this story that is basically a YA dark fantasy romance school story. I'll start by talking a little bit about the physical design of the book. I think that this is a really great cover. This is an excellent dust jacket. It's a great example of a book representing really well sort of what is inside the book. I think when you're looking at this cover, you get an idea of what the story is about right away. The end papers of the book are black, and the title cover page is this deep red color with this damask design on it. And this is kind of a neat detail. The text itself inside the book is a deep red color. I think this goes a long way to contributing to the idea of Gothicism and the kind of sexy feel that the story is going for. I think this is some great art direction on the part of Abrams. This is a pretty good looking book. As for the story itself, Howard has really woven some interesting ideas together when it comes to Phantom of the Opera. There's obviously been quite a bit of research that's gone into this book in terms of Phantom of the Opera. There were a lot of points in this book that I felt that Howard really had this character of the Phantom nailed. I really like that about this book, especially in light of certain Phantom adaptations and sequels that, in my opinion, focus on him as a love interest too much and focus on him as a villain too little. Howard gives us a Phantom with a good dose of psychological monstrosity, which I think is very appropriate for his character. I also liked that she put in elements of other monster fiction, so there's definitely a vampire influence here, as well as notes of Frankenstein. Generally, from a plot point of view, I found Roseblood's story pretty interesting, and my dislikes for the book have all to do with the structure and the writing. There were lots of parts of the structure in particular that I felt were pretty weak. So although I found the story interesting, the way Howard chose to tell the story really didn't work for me. The first 2/3 of the book, Howard really attempts to build the plot on the framework of a school story. For a while, it seems like Howard will really succeed at this. But by the time that the fantasy elements start ramping up a little bit, everything that Howard introduced in the first half totally just falls apart. Rune's friendships in particular amount to basically what is narrative deadweight. We do not care about her friendships, and by the end of the story, it almost seems like Howard doesn't care about them either. Certain professors have bigger roles towards the end of the story, but at this point we've only really talked to them or even seen them less like than like 3 times. We don't know these characters at all. So by the time they start having these bigger roles, it seems really canned. So in other words, the framework that Howard attempts to build this story upon really is shaky at best. She tries to incorporate too many of the school story elements and ends up forgetting about a lot of them towards the end, and then just sort of injecting them here and there in a way that seems really contrived. There are also some general issues with the story being too convoluted and the writing just not being clear enough to support that kind of story. For example, the mystery and the suspense elements of the story are just not really well crafted enough to come across as genuine. A lot of the reveals towards the end of the story end up just being reveals by virtue of the fact that for some reason Rune and the other main character, her love interest, Thorn, this is information that they just have decided to keep from us for some reason. There really is no good motivation for them keeping this information from us as readers except to make the story more suspenseful. It comes off as really, really contrived. There are also some smaller issues when it comes to the writing being a little bit overly sensory, as well as not really making sense when it comes to the nuts and bolts of a scene. For example, there's a part where Rune is described holding a cup of tea and setting her hands down next to a gray napkin. But the way that the sentence is structured, it makes it seem like the napkin is the subject of the sentence, and it just gets really confusing. Like, as a reader, I had to read it 3 or 4 times trying to figure out what it was that Rune was actually doing. This might be a bit more of an editing concern than anything, but it definitely is a concern as we go throughout the entirety of the book. Now, I know that I'm being pretty critical of it, but I do have to say that with all of this in mind, I did actually enjoy many parts of this book. I think that it's pretty standard fare for teens and adults who like YA fantasy romance. As a book that is very strongly targeted toward this audience, it succeeds in a lot of ways. I did love all of the research that went into this book, and I love the fact that Howard is looking at the Phantom of the Opera, the story of the Phantom of the Opera, with a really appreciative eye. As a reader, I can absolutely relate to that, and it came through in a way that I found to be really exciting. You guys pick this book up if you are part of the targeted audience. I think that people who sort of know what they're getting into will really, really like this book, but do keep in mind that there are some stutters when it comes to story structure and writing and things like that. But yeah. Alright guys, that is it for my review today. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you next time. Bye!